everyone. So it seems like you're gearing up for a trip and want to make sure you're covered just in case things don't go exactly as planned. You've sent us this guide from My Insurance Advice UK called Best Travel Medical Insurance. Very smart move to think ahead. We're going to take a deep dive into this together. Honestly, a lot of people don't realize what they don't know about travel insurance, and there can be some pretty serious consequences if you're not prepared.
Oh, absolutely. It's so easy to just assume your regular health insurance has you covered, but that's almost never the case. Travel medical insurance is specifically designed to cover medical expenses that come up when you're outside your home country. It's like a separate safety net just for your travels.
Right, so let's say you're in, I don't know, Bangkok, enjoying all the amazing street food, and suddenly you end up needing emergency care. Your domestic insurance probably wouldn't be much help there, would it?
Probably not, no. And that's exactly why this deep dive is so important. We're going to help you understand exactly what travel medical insurance covers and why it's so crucial, even if you think you don't need it.
Love it. Okay, so this guide jumps right into different types of coverage. It starts with emergency medical treatment, which seems pretty self-explanatory. But what does that really include in practical terms? Can you give us some real-world examples?
Absolutely. So think about those unexpected events that could, really derail your trip. A sudden illness, a nasty fall while you're hiking, even food poisoning from that exotic dish you just had to try. Emergency medical treatment covers all of these situations, making sure you can get that urgent care you need without worrying about, massive bills.
Right, and those costs can add up really quickly, especially in countries with private healthcare systems.
Exactly. And that leads us to the next coverage area. Hospital stays. Now, ideally, none of us want to spend our vacation in a hospital bed, but if the unexpected does happen, travel medical insurance can help cover the costs of hospitalization, including room charges, surgery, nursing care, even the cost of getting you back home if that's needed.
Okay, that makes total sense. Now, I'm curious about something the guide mentions, repatriation of remains. A bit of a heavy topic, I know, but why is it so important to consider?
It's definitely not the most pleasant thing to think about when planning a trip, that's for sure. But in the unfortunate event of a traveler's death abroad, repatriation of remains coverage can save their loved ones, tens of thousands of dollars. In transportation and logistical costs, it's really significant. It can also help make sure their loved one is returned home with dignity and respect.
Wow, that's a powerful reminder of why we're doing this deep dive. It's about so much more than just covering medical bills. It's about having a plan for the unthinkable.
Exactly.
And speaking of unexpected events, let's talk about emergency evacuation.
Yeah.
This seems like a vital part of coverage that a lot of travelers might overlook.
It is. It really is.
So what exactly does emergency evacuation entail? Paint us a picture.
Okay, imagine you're, let's say, trekking in a remote region of the Himalayas, and you experience a serious medical emergency. Emergency evacuation coverage would kick in to transport you to the nearest adequate medical facility. This could involve a helicopter ride, an ambulance transfer, even a medically equipped flight back to your home country, depending on how serious your condition is.
Wow, so it's not just about getting you to the nearest, local clinic. It's about making sure you receive the right level of care, even if that means really significant transportation costs.
Precisely. And these evacuations can be incredibly expensive. Did you know that a medical evacuation from, say, a remote island in the Philippines can easily cost upwards of $50,000?
Oh, wow, that's a staggering amount. Okay, I'm definitely starting to see why this coverage is so important.
And it's not just about those, dramatic, life-threatening situations. Travel medical insurance also covers more routine medical needs. For example, doctor visits coverage helps with the costs of seeing a general practitioner or a specialist for, diagnosis and treatment. For non-emergency conditions.
Got it. So if I'm in Paris and I get a terrible cold that just won't quit, this coverage could help me find a local doctor and cover the cost of the visit.
Exactly. And it doesn't stop there. Travel medical insurance often covers prescription medication as well, ensuring you can access necessary medications while you're abroad, which can be a real lifesaver, especially if you rely on specific medications.
Yeah, I can only imagine how much even a simple antibiotic could cost in a country with a totally different healthcare system.
Absolutely. The costs can vary wildly depending on where you are and what kind of medication you need. So having this coverage gives you peace of mind, letting you focus on enjoying your trip instead of worrying about unexpected medical expenses.
Okay, so far we've covered emergency medical treatment, hospital stays, repatriation of remains, emergency evacuation, doctor visits, and prescription medications. That's a lot. But I have a question that I think is on a lot of listeners' minds right now. Why do we even need travel medical insurance? Can't we just rely on our regular health insurance?
That's a great question, and it's a really common misconception. The reality is, most domestic health insurance plans offer extremely limited coverage, if any at all, outside of your home country. They're just not designed for international travel.
So even if I have like top-notch health insurance back home, it's not going to help much if I don't know, break my leg skiing in Switzerland.
In most cases, you're right. You might have some very minimal coverage for emergencies, but it's probably not going to be nearly enough to cover the potentially astronomical costs of medical care in another country.
And that brings us to a really crucial point this guide makes. Healthcare costs can be incredibly high in certain countries.
They really can. For instance, a straightforward doctor's visit in the U.S. can easily set you back hundreds of dollars. And a hospital stay, well, let's just say it could wipe out your savings very quickly.
Okay, that's a sobering thought. So travel medical insurance isn't just about peace of mind, it's about protecting ourselves from a potential financial disaster.
Precisely. It's about having that financial safety net, knowing you can seek the care you need without worrying about crippling medical bills.
You've convinced me. Travel medical insurance is definitely a must-have. But now comes the tricky part. How do we actually choose the right insurance? There are so many options out there, it can feel completely overwhelming.
Don't worry, we're going to break it all down for you. The guide lays out 5 key considerations for choosing the right policy, and we're going to tackle them one by one.
Lead the way.
Okay, so first and foremost, we need to talk about coverage limits. This is the maximum amount the insurance company will pay for those covered medical expenses.
So if I'm understanding correctly, the higher the coverage limit, the more financial protection I have.
That's the general idea, but it's not quite as simple as that. Higher limits usually come with higher premiums. You know, those regular payments you make for the insurance.
So it's all about finding that sweet spot. Enough coverage to feel secure, but not so much that it breaks the bank. How do we determine what limit is right for us?
The guide suggests considering 2 main factors: your destination and the activities you'll be doing. For instance, if you're planning a relaxing beach vacation in, say, Bali, you might not need as high a coverage limit as someone going on a multi-week trek through the Himalayas.
Right. It makes sense that a trip with more potential for, like, adventure or accidents would require a higher level of coverage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And remember, destinations matter too. Countries with those advanced healthcare systems, like the U.S., tend to have much higher medical costs. So if that's where you're headed, you'll probably want a higher coverage limit.
Okay, destination and activities. Got it. What's the next key consideration?
This one's really important and often overlooked. Policy exclusions. This is all about understanding what your policy doesn't cover.
Ooh, this sounds tricky. What are some common exclusions we should be aware of?
Pre-existing conditions are a big one. If you have a medical condition before your trip, it's crucial to check if your policy covers it. Or consider getting a supplemental add-on, sometimes called a rider, to make sure you're protected.
So if I have, say, asthma and I need to use an inhaler, I need to make sure that's specifically covered by my policy. I wouldn't want to be caught off guard in a foreign country without access to essential medication.
Exactly. And it's not just pre-existing conditions. Some policies have exclusions for high-risk activities like skydiving or scuba diving. So if you're planning on doing anything adventurous, double-check your policy to make sure you're covered.
It's starting to feel like choosing the right insurance is a bit like detective work. We need to carefully consider our destination, our activities, and any pre-existing conditions, just to make sure there are no nasty surprises hiding in the fine print.
That's a great way to put it. We're going to unpack all of that and more. But for now, let's move on to our next key consideration: duration of coverage.
This one seems pretty straightforward. Make sure the policy covers the entire length of our trip, right?
Right, but there are a couple of things to think about. First, do you need a single trip policy for just this one specific trip? Or an annual multi-trip policy if you travel frequently?
So if I'm like a digital nomad who's constantly on the move, an annual multi-trip policy would make more sense.
Absolutely. And another point the guide highlights is the importance of checking if the policy allows for extensions. What if your trip gets unexpectedly extended? You wouldn't want your coverage to lapse while you're still abroad.
That's a great point. Okay, what's next on our list of key considerations?
Let's talk about emergency assistance services. These are like your lifeline if things go wrong during your trip.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What exactly are emergency assistance services?
Imagine you're in a foreign country, you've been in an accident, and you don't speak the language. Panic sets in. That's where emergency assistance services come in. They can help you find suitable medical facilities, arrange those emergency evacuations, and even provide translation services. It's like having a 247 guardian angel in your pocket.
Wow, that would be a huge relief, knowing there's someone you can rely on in a crisis no matter what happens.
Exactly. And finally, let's talk about the factor that's always on everyone's mind: policy cost.
Here's where things get real. We all want to get the best deal, but as we've seen, the cheapest option isn't always the smartest choice.
You're absolutely right. The guide cautions against simply picking the policy with the lowest price tag.
Because a lower premium could mean less coverage or higher out-of-pocket expenses if we actually need to use it.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance, a policy that's affordable but also provides enough coverage for your specific needs.
Okay, I think I'm starting to grasp all these key considerations, but now that we've covered those, what's the next step? How do we actually go about buying travel medical insurance?
Great question. That's exactly what we'll cover after a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be back in a moment to guide you through the process of finding and purchasing the right policy for you.
All right, we're back, ready to dive into the practical side of things, how to actually buy travel medical insurance. Now that we've covered all those key considerations, where do we even begin?
Well, the good news is this guide gives us a really clear roadmap. It breaks the whole purchasing process down into 5 manageable steps.
Okay, that sounds less daunting already. So let's walk through those steps one by one. What's the first one?
The first step is to assess your needs, which, we've already touched on a bit. It's all about taking stock of your trip, really figuring out what kind of coverage you actually need.
Right, so we go back to considering our destination, what we'll be doing there, any pre-existing conditions we might have. Basically, making sure the coverage is tailored to our specific trip.
Precisely. There's no one-size-fits-all when it comes to travel medical insurance. It's about finding the right fit for your individual circumstances.
Okay, needs assessed. What's next?
Step 2 is where the research really begins. Compare plans. This is where you start digging into the world of insurance providers and their policies.
And I imagine this is where a lot of people start to feel overwhelmed. So many options, so many details to compare.
Oh, absolutely. It can be a real jungle out there. But thankfully, we live in a digital age, right? Comparison websites can be incredibly helpful. Instead of spending hours and hours on individual insurance sites, you can use these tools to see policies side by side, comparing coverage limits, exclusions, prices, all in one place.
That sounds like a huge time saver, so we can easily compare those key features we talked about earlier, like the coverage limits for different destinations and activities.
Exactly. These tools can help you narrow down your options and really focus on the policies that best fit your needs.
Okay, let's say we've done our comparison shopping. We've found a few policies that look promising. What's the next step?
Step 3 is to get a quote. This is where you contact the insurance provider directly. You give them your specific trip details to get a personalized quote.
So this is where we provide all the nitty-gritty, right? Destination, travel dates, age, any pre-existing conditions. Basically anything that might affect the price and coverage of the policy.
You got it. And it's super important to be accurate and transparent when you're giving them this information. Any omissions or inaccuracies could lead to problems down the line if you need to make a claim.
Makes sense. Wouldn't want our claim denied because we forgot to mention something important during the quote process or quote received. What's next?
This is maybe the most important step of all. Read the fine print. I know, it's tempting to just skim through those long policy documents, but trust me, it is so worth taking the time to really understand every detail.
Okay, so you said this a few times now and I'm starting to get it, but honestly, reading insurance policies, not exactly my idea of a fun time. Can you break down why it's so crucial, like really drive it home?
Think of the policy document as a contract between you and the insurance company. It spells out exactly what's covered, what's not covered, and how to proceed if you need to make a claim. If you don't understand the terms and conditions, you could end up with a very unpleasant surprise later.
Can you give us an example? What could actually go wrong if we don't pay attention to the fine print?
Sure. Let's say you're super excited about your scuba diving adventure in the Maldives. You find a policy online, it seems perfect. You click buy without reading everything carefully. You get there, you're ready to explore that amazing underwater world, and then you discover your policy excludes coverage for diving below a certain depth. Suddenly, your dream trip is, well, not so dreamy anymore.
Ouch, that would be a nightmare. So it's not just about knowing what the policy covers in general, it's about understanding the specific terms and conditions, the ones that apply to our individual trick and the activities we'll be doing.
Exactly. That's why thoroughly reviewing that policy document is absolutely crucial. It's about protecting yourself, making sure you're fully aware of your rights and obligations. Don't let excitement or impatience lead to costly mistakes later on.
All right. Point taken. No more skimming for me. I'm going to be reading those fine print documents with a magnifying glass from now on. So once we've digested all the details, what's the final step in this buying process?
Step 5 is the easiest one. Purchase and keep your policy accessible. Once you've found a policy you're happy with, you've carefully reviewed everything, it's time to make the purchase, which is usually done online these days.
So a few clicks and we're covered. Easy enough.
Yes, but remember, buying the policy is just the first step. Make sure you keep a copy of that policy document handy. Print it out, save it to your phone, email it to yourself, whatever works for you.
So we can easily access it if we need to, especially if we're dealing with like a medical situation in a foreign country where internet access might be spotty.
Exactly. You never know when you might need to refer to those policy details. And it's also really important to have the insurance provider's emergency contact information easily accessible. Program their hotline number into your phone, add it to your travel documents, whatever. Make sure you can reach them quickly in a crisis.
Okay, so preparation is key. It's not just about buying the policy, it's about being prepared to actually use it if necessary.
Precisely. Now, before we move on, I want to touch on something the guide mentions briefly. Top travel medical insurance providers.
Yeah.
They highlighted 2 companies that are generally considered, well regarded in the industry.
Oh yeah, I was curious about that section. Are these providers that you would personally recommend?
Well, it's not about endorsing specific providers because every traveler's needs are different. But the guide does mention World Nomads, Alliance Global Assistance, IMG, and AXA Assistance USA as good starting points for your research. They tend to have solid reputations and offer a wide range of coverage options.
So we can check out their websites, compare their policies, and see if any of them fit our needs and our budget.
Exactly. And remember, it's always a good idea to compare multiple providers before making a decision. Don't be afraid to contact their customer service teams, ask questions, and make sure you feel comfortable with the company you choose. You want to be confident they'll be there to support you if you need them.
This has been so helpful. I've gone from feeling totally overwhelmed to actually feeling empowered to choose the right travel medical insurance. We've covered a lot. The importance of travel medical insurance, the different types of coverage, those key considerations for choosing a policy, and the steps involved in actually buying it. Is there anything else we should keep in mind as we go on this insurance journey?
One thing I always emphasize is that travel medical insurance isn't just a box to tick off your pre-trip checklist. It's an investment in your health, your peace of mind, and the overall enjoyment of your travels.
So it's not just about protecting ourselves from, financial hardship. It's about giving ourselves the freedom to actually relax and enjoy the adventure, knowing we're covered if something unexpected happens.
Exactly. Even the best laid travel plans can go awry. Illness can happen, accidents can happen, and unforeseen events can disrupt even the most meticulously planned trips.
So having that safety net of travel medical insurance lets us venture off the beaten path, explore new cultures, and really experience the world without constantly worrying about what might go wrong.
You got it. Travel is all about embracing the unknown, pushing boundaries, and creating those memories that'll last a lifetime. With the right travel medical insurance in place, you can do all of that with confidence and peace of mind.
That's such a great way to think about it. It's not just about insurance, it's about empowering ourselves to actually live our travel dreams to the fullest.
Absolutely. Now, as you continue your research and you're navigating the world of travel medical insurance, I want to leave you with one final thought-provoking question. What are the potential consequences of not having travel medical insurance?
Ooh, that's a powerful question. It really makes you stop and think about those worst-case scenarios and the potential costs, both financial and otherwise, of going without this crucial protection.
Exactly. By considering those potential downsides, you can gain a much deeper appreciation for the value of travel medical insurance and make more informed decisions about your coverage needs.
This has been such an insightful deep dive. I feel like we've covered all the bases. Thanks to the clear guidance provided by My Insurance Advice UK. Their expertise and easy-to-understand explanations have been invaluable in demystifying this often confusing topic.
Absolutely. A huge thank you to My Insurance Advice UK for providing such a comprehensive and user-friendly resource. Their guide is truly a must-read for anyone planning a trip abroad.
And to our listeners, we hope this deep dive has been informative and empowering. Remember, choosing the right travel medical insurance is an investment in your health, your peace of mind, and your ability to fully embrace the joy of travel.
So as you embark on your next adventure, remember those wise words from My Insurance Advice UK. Don't leave home without it.
Safe and healthy travels, everyone. Okay, so we've talked a lot about choosing the right travel medical insurance policy. But I think it's time to talk about the actual buying part. It can feel like a whole other challenge, especially when we're doing it all online.
Oh, for sure. It's easy to get a little overwhelmed with all the options in fine print, especially since we're so used to, quick and easy online purchases for everything else these days.
Right.
But travel insurance isn't something you want to rush through. This guide really emphasizes taking a careful, considered approach, even when you're buying online.
It's like that time I got super excited and bought this amazing travel backpack online based on like a flashy ad. It looked incredible, but then it arrived and it was basically doll-sized, totally useless for an actual trip. We definitely don't want that happening with our insurance.
Perfect analogy. Rushing into a purchase without doing your research can definitely lead to, disappointment. Or even worse, having inadequate coverage when you actually need it. So the guide outlines this 5-step process for buying smart online. We can walk through that together if you'd like.
Okay, I'm all ears. Let's make sure we avoid any more doll-sized backpack insurance situations. What's step 1?
All right, step 1 is going to sound familiar.
Oh.
Assess your needs. Just like when you were choosing a policy, you need to be really clear about your trip details, the potential risks, any pre-existing conditions. Make sure the policy you're actually buying is going to cover what you need it to.
Makes sense. We need to tailor the purchase to our trip, not just click on the first thing that looks good.
Exactly.
What's next?
Next, you're going to compare plans. But this time, you're looking beyond just the policy details. You're also looking into the providers themselves. Check out their reputations, read some customer reviews, see how user-friendly their websites are. Think of it like choosing a travel buddy. You want someone reliable and easy to work with, especially if things go wrong.
That's a great way to put it. If you need to make a claim, the last thing you want is to be dealing with a company that's like unresponsive or difficult to work with. Good customer service can make a huge difference in a stressful situation.
Absolutely. So once you've narrowed down your choices based on the policy details and the provider's reputation, it's time for step 3, getting those all-important quotes. And remember, be accurate and complete with the information you give them so the quotes you get back are accurate and reflect your actual needs.
Okay, so far so good. Assess needs, compare plans, get quotes. We're on a roll. What are the final 2 steps?
Step 4 is, you guessed it, read the fine print. I know, we keep saying this, but it's especially important now during the actual purchase phase. This is your last chance to catch any hidden exclusions or limitations before you commit. Take your time, read everything carefully, and don't be afraid to contact the provider if you have any questions or anything needs clarifying.
Okay, picture this. I'm all set for my dream ski trip to the Alps. I find the perfect policy online. I click buy, and then bam, I get there and realize it doesn't cover off-to-tee skiing. My entire trip could be ruined because of one tiny detail I overlooked.
Exactly. That's why this step is so crucial. Don't let excitement or, just wanting to get it over with cloud your judgment. Remember, the devil is often in the details.
All right, I'm officially a fine print reading convert. So what's the final step in this online buying journey?
The last step is pretty straightforward. Purchase the policy and keep it accessible, like we talked about before. But the guide adds one more really important point. Familiarize yourself with the claims process before you need to use it.
Right, so no scrambling to figure out how to file a claim while I'm stuck in a hospital bed in some foreign country.
Precisely. Understand how to file a claim, what documents you'll need, what the typical timelines are. It'll make things so much smoother if you ever actually need to use your insurance. Remember, knowledge is power, especially when you're dealing with unexpected situations.
This whole deep dive has been so eye-opening. I feel like we've really uncovered the secrets of travel medical insurance, from understanding why it's important in the first place to navigating all the details of choosing and buying a policy.
I'm glad to hear that. It's really not just about checking a box. It's about making informed decisions to ensure you're protected and can actually enjoy your travels without worrying.
Absolutely. So to recap for our listeners, here's what we've learned today. Travel medical insurance covers a wide range of medical expenses you might incur abroad. It's crucial even if you already have domestic health insurance. And choosing the right policy involves a multi-step process. assessing your needs, comparing plans, getting those quotes, and of course, meticulously reading the fine print. But just as important as choosing the right policy is buying it in a smart way. Don't rush, take your time, and do your research.
And perhaps the most important takeaway of all, travel medical insurance is an investment in your well-being. It allows you to relax, explore, and create unforgettable travel memories, knowing that you're prepared for whatever comes your way.
So, as you plan your next adventure, remember the wise words of My Insurance Advice UK. Don't leave home without it. Safe and healthy travels, everyone.